All right, our recording is on. Let's start with, did you say Dacia is how you pronounce your name?
Yes, Dacia.
Okay, please introduce yourself and explain a little of who you are, your background, your bio, and why you're running for this office. We'll give you a few minutes to do that.
Great, thank you. It's wonderful to have this opportunity. Bob, it's really great to meet you, albeit not in person, but on Zoom. My name is Dacia Graber, and I am the Democratic nominee for House District 35. I am a nearly 20-year firefighter. I started my career as a volunteer, then was part-time, and for over a decade have been a full-time paid union firefighter. I am a mom of 4, blended family with 4 teenagers who are all probably, hopefully, upstairs attending school right now. And also a longtime community advocate. I've been involved in things like working on West Portland Town Center, and also I'm a board member with Just Compassion, and I started a healthcare clinic for unhoused folks with the Tigard Severe Weather Shelter, among other things. My pathway into, I never saw myself as a politician. I never imagined that I would be running for office. And how this came to be was through the work that I have done in the community, but mostly as a firefighter, where I was going out, we're being called to the worst day in people's lives. And one call at a time, I have this incredible privilege of doing something to make their days better, to help problems. In the course of that, I saw everything from what happens when people don't have access to healthcare, when they don't have adequate housing, the struggles that working families face, and then right now, of course, front and center are the disparities we see with COVID, gun violence. All these things informed my activism, and I discovered that taking these stories and these lived experiences to the Capitol, I could have a real impact, one call at a time. Sorry, you can hear my kids coming through right now. And so in doing that, I was like, I met current Representative Doherty, and several years ago, well, she came out to a Portland Metro Fire Camp, something we do to introduce young women to the fire service. She made the suggestion that I consider running for office someday. And I kind of laughed it off like, oh, that's not my thing. And came home and discussed it with my family, and they were like, why wouldn't you? So that started the path, and here I am in front of you today, and I'm hoping to take these lived experiences and represent my community and work towards healing Oregon, both urgently and for the long term.
Great. Bob, could you introduce yourself?
Yes. My name is Bob Niemeyer. I'm an independent mechanical engineer, and I've worked out of homes for over 30 years now in Tigard. I have a degree in mechanical engineering and also professional engineering license in the state of Oregon. And I basically do product development for people when they have ideas to put onto the marketplace. Like, let's say Dacia came up with a better way of having a hose that wouldn't whip around like a water wiggle, and I could help her put that onto the marketplace and do the development in my own shop, and I can make almost anything on site and know where to get it to be built. I've dealt with companies all across the state of Oregon doing development of various different medical devices and things. I'm currently working on a very interesting medical device that helps diabetics draw blood without pain. It's called the Genteel. If anybody knows a diabetic, go to mygenteel.com and you can see the product that I developed, literally from scratch on that case.
Isn't that the product that the woman Elizabeth something in Silicon Valley was making, and then it turned out she was like making it up?
I can't answer that question. That's the first I've heard something like that. Now we're a brand new device that's never been on the marketplace until about 3 years ago.
Oh yeah, I'm not suggesting that you're making it up or that you're involved with the bad blood lady. I just was surprised you hadn't heard about the biggest fraud in Silicon Valley.
Oh, there's an awful lot of frauds in Silicon Valley, so there's an awful lot to follow there. So
fair enough. And the fact that I can't remember her last name is not helpful. Elizabeth Holmes, that was her name.
Oh, okay.
She had this thing that she was supposed to have a device that you wouldn't have to prick your finger anymore. You could just like draw blood without doing so, and it didn't actually exist.
Oh, okay. Oh, I think I know what you're talking about now. And she had all kinds of huge investments and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, like several $billion in investments, all of which went down the toilet when it turned out she had like imagined her product.
Yeah, no, this device only helps you draw blood so that you can scoop it up with your glucose meters. And basically, it's a vacuum device, but that's something else. I'm also running for office because I just plain think it's my personal responsibility to try and bring some business type of background. I've been in business for myself for over 30 years. My company, New Ventures Engineering, has been doing a wide selection of different types of products. And I think I can bring that type of knowledge and expertise to the Capitol in order to kind of get some more thinking going on about how business works. And to me,
What's the first bill you'd introduce, Bob?
Say again?
What's the first bill you would introduce?
Well, the first thing that I would like to try and introduce is a way of getting all of the elected and appointed officials off of the government payroll per se, in terms of all their benefits and all their perks and things. I actually think that right now our elected officials are all working for the government as opposed to working for the people. And when I say that, they receive basically the same thing as PERS. They get all of their health care. They get everything you could imagine. I don't mind giving them a parking space, but that should be it. And I believe that a representative should only be receiving money. And I'm developing this thing that I call independence contractors, where I am an independent contractor. I only receive money for what I do. I don't work unless I get paid for it by the government, for instance, to represent the people. And as long as a person always is being forced to return to where they came from, as in when a person decides to quit office or not run any longer, they have to leave the government and basically live with whatever they did there. And right now, when you get lifetime PERS and things like that can accumulate, or if you have all of that time that you spent as an elected representative and then get a government job, all of that applies to your seniority or investment and retirement funds and things like that. That's the part which I strongly think should be ended.
Got it.
And the Supreme Court of Oregon is on.
We have a limited amount of time, and I'm trying to get as many questions as I can in half an hour. Dacia, same question. What's the first bill you'd introduce?
So I'm going to put this through a firefighter lens right now. And that is, historically, we go into the legislature as a firefighter looking for smoke, right? What's generating the smoke? Right now, we have a 5-alarm fire and we have people hanging out the windows. That is the reality of this moment and with COVID. And so this is going to be a bipartisan team play to do whatever we can to help Oregon. So my first bill will be supporting COVID relief. We need to make sure that people can put food on their table, that they can access medical care, that they have a roof over their head, that the unemployment system is fixed. So the very first thing I will do is be a team player to do whatever we need to make sure that Oregonians are taken care of. I have a lot of aspirational things, of course, I want to work on, but everything has shifted in the last year. We have, and we're seeing right now in the field and we're seeing in the state a resurgence in COVID cases. So we need to first and foremost tackle this pandemic. We need to make sure people that were displaced by fires are taken care of. And as we go into the hard winter months, we need to make sure everyone has a roof over their head.
So, sorry, I hear you on what your perspective is here and where you're coming from. Can you tell me one bill that you would introduce?
Well, I would love to be able to introduce a bill as a new legislator. I'm not sure that that is possible. I know they're already working on bill language. I would like to see an emergency housing bill. So we have moratoriums, eviction moratoriums right now, but I would like to see something that ensures that folks that are on the cusp of becoming unhoused and have nowhere to go for their families have emergency housing. Whether, I don't know what that looks like right now. I do know that several bills are being developed for COVID relief, and I intend to support those.
Great. Rachel, you want to take the next question?
Sure. Dacia, can you tell us one thing that, I guess, how would you rate the governor's response to the fires, and one thing you would have done differently?
I find these questions tricky because I think hindsight is 20/20, and it's really easy to Monday morning quarterback. The fires that we had literally blow up in the last month were unprecedented. We've never seen anything like this in our lifetimes. But I will stake a mark and tell you that these aren't once in a lifetime fires. These are first in a lifetime fires. So from an emergency management perspective, and that is my academic background is in emergency management and homeland security, I would have liked to see, on the whole, the state possibly a little more ready to move forward with our response. But, going back, we don't have adequate staffing for our fire engines, whether it's volunteer or professional in Eastern Oregon. So you had places like Talent in Phoenix that were burned to the ground, where instead of having 4-person staffing on those fire engines, you had 2-person staffing, and people were overwhelmed. Also, we have done a good job, I think, we have worked as a state to prepare for earthquake preparedness. I think we need to invest and make sure that our emergency management system is robust for not only the Cascadia earthquake, but these fires coming up. So the governor did the best that she could. I can tell you, I was there for most, I worked, it felt like, for 2 weeks straight, and the governor was not the one giving me orders. That was my commander and my chief. And so that's my perspective on that. And where I work, we had well-staffed resources, well-staffed units, and we put everything into it. We left it all on the table. And here, like in Washington County and Yamhill County, we were able to have pretty incredible fire stops.
Thank you. You mentioned earthquake preparedness. I saw that, that's part of emergency response. Is there anything you believe the state should prioritize in the next session around earthquake preparedness?
So full disclosure, I sit on the State Seismic Policy Advisory Commission. And the issues that we have seen both with COVID and with the wildfires are things we've been kind of waving the flag for years, because they don't apply to just earthquakes. So first and foremost, a robust, effective early alert system, so that people have notifications, they have time to evacuate, and they can plan for that. And then we have a massively underfunded emergency management effort in this state. And I think, if anything, the Emergency Preparedness and Veterans Committee has never been one of the sexier committees that people are clamoring to be on. And all of a sudden, it's first and foremost in the news. And so I would like to see more robust efforts to create a more resilient Oregon. But I think the first thing that needs to happen is that early alert system needs to be fully funded. Not to go over my time, but that would do things like in an earthquake, if you have these sensors on the coast, it detects some of the seismic waves coming in, it would recall elevators to ground floors, it would make sure that drawbridges aren't up, it would shut off major pipeline valves, it could prevent catastrophic damages that would be in the millions and possibly billions of dollars.
So you would prioritize that even in the midst of the, pandemic-induced Great Recession we seem to be in?
I don't think it's pie. It's not an either or proposition. I think I would do both. Obviously, the first thing we have to do is provide for imminent life safety right now. So making sure that we are taking care of our state citizens right now is really important. But looking forward, we have to have short-term perspective on this and big picture perspective. If we don't think 10 and 20 and 50 years ahead right now, we're just going to be chasing our tail with every disaster that happens.
So I didn't quite hear a response. Would you prioritize that in the next session, spending on the earthquake alert system. I mean, besides emergency alerts, you know, upgrading that, but also the, you know, the alert system that is already exists in California and elsewhere, you would want Oregon to spend money on that.
Yes,
Stu? Okay.
I do believe that we're going to be destined to repeat this cycle again, and I do think we need to fund that. It's a long-term perspective life safety issue.
With respect to fires and things, I believe that you know, your once in a lifetime type of thing was being set up 20 to 50 years ago through the lack of or interference of forest management. That has always been an issue where the forests that were caught on fire everywhere around here were all mismanaged for decades worth of stuff that was out there ready to burn. And it's no small wonder that some sections of Oregon were literally like a lit fuse. No way to stop it because there was so much fuel available. And that stuff could have been managed a whole lot better by letting the people within the counties, for instance, go ahead and manage those properties that they know how to take care of and that the state has been constantly interfering with and refusing to pay for that help. So you know, you may think it's the first time in a lifetime. Now, it's been set up for a long time to happen, and it just finally did.
Do you have a perspective, Bob, on whether we should be spending money on the seismic alert piece of that?
The seismic alert thing, there's already some things in place, but I happen to think it's very woefully inadequate. I've been trying to follow some of the things that are going along with the volcano off the Oregon coast on the floor of the ocean. It's been rather fascinating about how there is some, you know, on the federal level, some government efforts going on to place sensors out there to actually watch what's going on with that volcano. That type of thing is something that we should be tying into, maybe even supporting financially. But there's a lot of efforts that are trying to keep track of that fault out there. And I think it's more than justified to do that. The big one will happen. And I think that there's a lot of efforts trying to make sure we do get that little bit of an early warning.
So that's something you would have the state of Oregon spend money on.
Oh, yes. I mean, it's actually being done on the federal level, but to provide what's necessary for the federal level to assist them, definitely. It's to America's most interest on that to keep track of that.
Great, thank you. So we are in the middle of a recession. Dacia, do you want to talk about what you would cut, what you would be open to cutting from state government in order to keep the budget balanced?
I would be interested in having a conversation when I have that full information about what cuts are possible on the table. More importantly, I am interested in having a conversation about how we look at revenue reform in this state. I think continuing to make cuts on programs that are scraping to survive is not the avenue. I think that, ooh, my screen changed. I think we need to be looking at greater revenue reform. So you have, I would encourage a corporate transparency bill on taxation. We have major corporations that have classified from C corporations to pass through, and the state is losing hundreds of millions of dollars a year in that. We are throwing money out through our tax code. And I think rather than saying, oh, we're gonna cut teacher salaries, or we're gonna cut this foster care program, we need to have a larger conversation that looks at revenue generation in the state. I'm in full support of that. I've been learning from different organizations and different people and trying to get the big picture on that. I have not been privy to the budget conversations right now.
I think that there's a huge number of things that could be cut out of the state government right now. One of those, my pet peeve, of course, a lot of it is Metro. They have no business even being in existence. I would completely try and stop the light rail project that has no business at all trying to spend $7 billion going from 3 miles down Barber Boulevard and breaking into Tigard. There are a number of things that are just absolute waste and could be totally discontinued completely. And that's the type of thing that I would look for in going on the government. Is it something that we're actually supposed to be doing, or is it something that's just employing a bunch of people? There's a big difference. It has to be that we have to decrease the size of this government.
Great. I think Aaron has one last question for each of you before our fun question at the end. So I take that back, 2 questions.
I have 2, and I'll make them quick. Bob, can you speak to a point where you find yourself independent of the Republican Party? In other words, we look for in our candidates people who can demonstrate independent thought, who can break with their party ideology.
Vouchers.
Okay.
I'm a 100% vouchers person. I believe that the way we should solve our school issues is to go completely with vouchers. Whereas a lot of the Republicans are in favor of school choice only. I think that the school choice should be done completely, but I believe it should be done via vouchers where our parents can actually go to an organization that wants to set up a normal type of education based upon what they believe they want their children to learn and choose, and have a certificate that says that their child is worth $10,000 a year to put to that group.
Great.
And there's a lot of people and several representatives don't believe that that's going to be constitutional. And I personally believe that it is. If we follow basic type of guidelines for the state of Louisiana, who successfully got through a court battle in the Supreme Court when they were trying to get their voucher system shut down. There's evidence out there in different states who have successfully done this, and I think we should do it.
Got it.
That is definitely something that not all Republicans think we should do.
Dacia, same question.
Yeah, so while I think I generally hold the ideals of the Democrats in the State House, there are specific bills that have been passed that I absolutely disagree with. In the 2019 session, there was a tsunami line inundation zone bill that was presented by Representative Gomberg that I was adamantly opposed to because it delegitimized the work that Dogami had been using for years, and in my estimation, put tens of thousands of coastal Oregonians at risk. So there's that. I would have been a no vote on 1049, not because I don't support education and student success funding, but because I felt that there was a better way to look at financing than on the backs of the very people that were teaching those children. I know we disagree on PERS, and I'd love to go into that more at some point. I don't know if, sounds like we won't have a chance to do that today. But in general,
That'll be another 2 hours.
Yeah, so I pride myself on being an independent thinker and looking at each bill and making sure that I have the full perspective of what's coming over and all the information. I think I've been kind of shocked to realize in conversations that when bills come through, legislators don't actually read those entire bills. I've been learning about the what a gut and stuff is and things like that. And I am looking forward to taking a deep dive on the individual policies and finding out what advances Oregon for everyone.
Great. You know, I think you may be the first person to tell me that you look forward to finding out what a gut and stuff is, but
oh, I learned. I learned with that tsunami bill.
I believe you. So the fun question, which we ask every cycle, just to kind of get to know the candidates on a human level, in this case is, what's the most awkward experience you've had in a Zoom call?
This is my first Zoom call on my computer.
Well, then this is the most awkward experience.
Yes.
Dacia, same question.
I don't even know where to start. I've had so many. I had a recent interview where I realized about 2 minutes in, I had a giant piece of hair that had looped out and I looked like I had a satellite dish. And the more I tried to fix it, the bigger it got. I think that was the same call where two of my teenagers were in the basement and got into an altercation, and you could very clearly hear it. So we had to restart the interview. And my border collie has this thing, and she's locked in the bedroom right now. Whenever I Zoom, she finds whatever bone she has and repeatedly throws it on the concrete of the floor on our porch. It's charming. So take your pick.
Very good example. I feel confident this is going to be a question that's going to keep on giving amazing answers.
Yes, so far so good on this question. Thank you for it, Erin, and thank you for thank you to you both for joining us in for a pandemic endorsement interview.
Yeah,
The endorsements will be out on the 14th.
great.
It's nice to meet you, Daisy.
Nice to meet you. Thank you very much for finding time.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.